today we have with us Suleiman Babamanu, who is the Nigeria Program Director at Rocky Mountain Institute, and my colleague here, Kingsley. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Good work you're doing at Rocky Mountain Institute, particularly with respect to research. But would like to get a sense of a bit of insights as to how RMI's work in Nigeria is really helping to accelerate energy transition.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here. RMI, just to provide a context, is we are a global nonprofit organization. We've been around for 40 years. It would interest you. And, our focus is transforming global energy systems to secure a clean, prosperous, zero carbon future for all. I know that's a mouthful. But essentially what we do under the Africa Energy Program, and specifically in Nigeria, is looking at working across 4 different pillars. One is unlocking sustainable grids, where we work with the government of Nigeria or different stakeholders, different government agencies, and even DISCOs, for example, and private sector to plan electricity or grid systems. We are also working on scaling distributed energy resources, where we're working with private developers, utilities, financial institutions to look at how we can scale the adoption of renewable energy and clean energy solutions in the country. We also recognize that electricity, without being utilized effectively, is not going to get you the right type of results, especially in rural communities. And so one of our key area of focus is also efficient demand stimulation and productive use. And so we are working with a wide range of partners in the country to ensure that electricity is used productively. And especially, we have a project called Energizing Agriculture in rural communities that makes, productive use of electricity. And the last thing is utility transformation, really working on the DISCOs because we seem to focus a lot about energy access and forget about how to improve areas that already have energy access and how we can improve their electricity supply. So these are the areas that we have focused on, and we have in different ways worked with different stakeholders within the country to advance energy transition in Nigeria, working with the Energy Transition Office, the Ministry of Power, the Rural Electrification Agency, and the Nigeria Electricity Regulatory Commission within the country.
That's a lot.
Yeah, so one critical thing that one could take away from what you have just said is the fact that collaboration is very key, and you're driving a lot around collaboration. And one very big aspect which you are also working on is the aspect of agriculture, which is very, very critical to Nigeria. But apart from these aspects, agriculture particularly, are there specific projects you have that you're looking at currently in Nigeria?
Yes, it's a very interesting, work that we're doing specifically on that agriculture. We recognize agriculture as the economic backbone of most rural communities, and if you really want to use energy as a catalyst to transform, lives of people in rural communities, then you have to link it up with, businesses. And so what we have done in that area is, like I said, we worked on with our partners, the Global Energy Alliance for People and Planet, to bring together a wide range of stakeholders, agri-extension programs, mini-grid developers, financial institutions, communities, and agro processing fabricators, bring them together in the same room and really talk to each other, because we realize that there's a siloed way of working that people are not actually, coming together to address specific needs. And so, that has become a very useful, activity to do, because it meant that it opened up opportunities for equipment fabricators to be able to fabricate fit for purpose equipment of energy efficient appliance that would be integrated into a mini grid. For the mini grid company, they're able to, identify customers within that rural communities that can take up their load, their energy, and then for the community, it is bringing in additional income for them. So that is one project that we are focused on. We're doing a lot on interconnected mini grids, and so a lot of our focus is working, like I said, with the utilities to, help design business models and implement these projects based on these business models.
So the point around technology, where you have to improve the local value chain and ensure that people actually create locally tailored technology is quite interesting. I mean, how do you think this can be scaled up? Because we depend so much on the West, and then finding a way to build local capacity is very critical. Do you think this is an aspect that can be scaled up across the country? How can that happen?
Absolutely, manufacturing is something that we really think is an opportunity that has not been really explored to the extent of the demand that is available within the country. And specifically on the example I gave around energizing agriculture, we have worked with the Manufacturers Association of Nigeria to really say to them, okay, this is what we're designing. Do you have members within your group that are able to fabricate equipment? Because for a mini grid, it is not enough to just get an equipment and just connect it to the mini grid. Compatibility is very, very important. So you have to be able to develop an equipment that is able to be compatible with the mini grid. And so it's important that the mini grid developer and the equipment manufacturer are speaking to each other to understand what the needs are, what type of equipment, what is the load, and things like that. So there's a huge opportunity there. And what we're doing is testing these equipment, making sure that they're able to work. They have they're producing to the capacity that the fabricator promised to deliver, and they're integrating well with the mini grids, and then bringing together partners to share the data that has come out of these kinds of pilots to demonstrate that we can actually scale this up, and it is changing the lives of people. And you can also look at how the demand for solar panels, for example, in the country, there are a number of companies right now that have started local manufacturing or assembly of solar panels, and you can see Oxano Solar is one of them. Naseni Solar is also a government institution that is also doing some local assembly. And so there's a huge opportunity. However, it has to go with the incentive of government to allow for importation of equipment, components that would allow for the assembly of these equipment. And then you're also looking at how can you introduce some tax holidays for some of these local manufacturers so that they can be encouraged to do more, because with the current manufacturing capacity within the country, it's significantly low, and it wouldn't be able to meet the demand of the country.
And with all of this work being done, supported by Rocky Mountain Institute, I can only imagine what sort of challenges you get to face while either working with those within the grassroots or implementing projects regarding solar installations, or with the agriculture, where we have now the energy and agri-nexus. But it would be great to share some of those experiences.
Absolutely. I mean, if it's easy, everyone would have been doing it, right? So, it comes with challenges. And as you know very well, doing business in Nigeria, despite the efforts of the government to ease, doing business, there's always a lot of challenges, especially in this space. And one of the key challenges that we have noticed, not necessarily in any kind of orders, is really the capacity to be able to deploy projects, not just pilot projects, to scale projects that would meet the demand of people. And when I say capacity, I'm talking about human capacity, both on the side of the skills that are required to be able to execute these projects, and also the capacity of developers to be able to do projects at scale, and even financial institutions understanding of how to finance these types of projects. The other challenge is when we look at as we think about scale, and one of the things that we're discussing within the assembly is how we triple in renewable energy targets between now and 2030. For you to be able to do that, you have to come up with a bankable project pipeline, right? And one of the missing pieces as we think about scaling up renewables in Nigeria is, when you meet financial institutions to finance projects, they want to see a project that is already prepared and ready for financing. Developers, on the other hand, or financial institutions don't want to fund, the project preparation, if you like. And so there's that missing piece in between that really needs to either public funding or philanthropic funding that needs to address to be able to prepare projects, bankable projects, that will then be able to attract the right type of funding. So there's a challenge of developing the project pipeline and attracting funding. One of the very, very big challenge when it comes to finance is, as you know very well, the economic situation in the country as it relates to foreign exchange and local currency. And so, for you to be able to attract, or developers' ability to attract local currency financing is actually very, very important. Because if you get your financing in US dollars, for example, all your income is coming in Naira. And so there's always that challenge of, repatriation. And so, the government has been working with different financial institutions, and we've been working with our partners as well to see how, we can structure, a project preparation facility, as well as, local currency financing that helps to address, those issues, to address some of these challenges.
So we're media professionals, and it's important that one of our roles is to also sort of showcase what is working or what's not working for those that are working, so that we get more of them, and for those that are not working, perhaps those that are involved in decision-making processes know what kinds of things they need to do. Would you say that we're telling the stories of successes in all of these kinds of projects enough?
I mean, there's a lot going on in Nigeria, and it's hard for any one person to track what the entire media is doing, especially right now with social media. That's even makes it more difficult. When you go on LinkedIn, sometimes you just get bombarded by what everyone is doing. But I think there's a lot that has happened between 2016 and now in Nigeria, since I can say that was when with the introduction of regulatory frameworks that allows for private sector participation. I remember back then, there's only a handful of companies that have actually demonstrated capacity to build mini grids or other renewable energy projects. But right now, you're talking about hundreds of companies that have actually, with different programs from the World Bank, African Development Bank, other, donor organizations, USAID, USTDA, FCDO, and GAP, and, a lot of organizations doing different things. So, which is to a certain extent been covered. But I think a lot more needs to be done. In first of all, understanding, what are the different what are all the partners doing, right? Some partners are, providing capital subsidies. Some organizations are doing implementation. Some are doing capacity building. So I think if the media is able to really look at all of the different, aspects of, this energy transition, and also look at what the government has put forward to create that enabling environment that can amplify Nigeria as, a place that is ready, exactly.
Investment.
Because there's always, with every country you would find there's a good side, and there's always negative stories that goes around. So if the media is able to portray the country as, ready for investment despite some of the challenges, based on like all of the regulatory frameworks that have been put in place, ease of doing business, the capacity that is present around with some of the developers, and the opportunities with financial institutions, I think, there's always a lot more that needs to be done to amplify the work. At RMI, we are, always eager to share the work that we're doing through thought leaderships, through, bringing together partners for convenings. And, we're always ready to work with media organizations to amplify this work. And we're not necessarily taking all the credits, because there's no one organization that is, going to be able to do it by itself. So, I think a lot has been done and a lot more needs to be done.
Yeah, so why the media is very critical in projecting some of these issues. In the kind of job you do, monitoring and evaluation is very critical.
Absolutely.
How do you monitor? What are the metrics you use in monitoring your progress in Nigeria?
So because, as I've mentioned, we're a non-profit organization, and so we have, different partners that we work with, and different partners have different, M&E frameworks that we need to, incorporate into our own monitoring and evaluation. But one of the key things that we do from all of the projects that we're implementing right now is ensuring that, we're collecting the right type of data pre and post the project implementation, right? And that data is very, very critical. So, for example, if we have installed a palm oil processing facility in a community, we're collecting data from the mini grid in terms of the utilization. We're collecting data in terms of how long this facility is functioning for. We're collecting data in terms of the amount of revenue it is generating over what period, the amount of feedstock that is coming and being processed. All of that, we're using that to create an analysis to say that this is working or this is not working, right? And that is something that we can use to then say to our partners that we need to be doing this more, or we have learned that this is not necessarily the best way to, go about this funding. And of course, throughout the life cycle of that project, we are, making sure that we're looking at how much, livelihoods that we have been able to impact, jobs that have been able to create, how much mini grid capacity has been utilized. How we made mini grids more commercially viable, how, in a bigger infrastructure projects like the embedded generation, making sure that even JESI frameworks have been put into account, making sure that it is inclusive and gender equity and social inclusion is part of, the the framework or the projects that we are implementing and making sure that we're paying attention to that.
Yeah, so if I might just ask you quickly, for a country like Nigeria, do you think removing import duty, VAT from everything that has to do with solar or sustainable energy, and possibly introducing a level of subsidy for some of these things will actually help us drive faster sustainable energy in Nigeria?
Yeah, I think it's a subject that has been discussed, for almost 5 or 10 years now. The subject of import duty, as you know, each government has a responsibility to raise, finance in to be able to take care of its own social responsibilities, and so the determination of which sector you want to
The subsidy to
be on the subsidy to be applied, or which sector do you want to, take away import duties, is actually a critical, discussion that usually happens, and it's sometimes very difficult to make comments on that. But I think when I focus only on the renewable space, I think a lot of countries have used that to drive the scale up of and the adoption of renewable energy in those countries, exactly. And so what needs to be done, and some organizations have actually carried out a cost-benefit analysis on if you take out duty or reduce the duties on solar panels, batteries, and or the balance of system, is that going to translate into other benefits for the country? And there's enough evidence to show that, if you remove subsidies on solar panels, for example, which the government has actually tried to do, but only if you are going to be assembling in country. A fully assembled solar panels don't attract zero duty, but SKDs, for example, can attract duties. But if you take away that, it is going to reduce the cost, and it's also going to mean that companies are able to deploy more, customers are able to buy more. So it means that the revenues of these companies are going to increase, and then the taxes that they're going to eventually pay also significantly increase. So if the government is losing some money from the duty waivers, it is going to be attracting some funding in terms of overall taxes that the companies, or revenues that the companies is generating. So of course it is an important tool to expand and to increase the deployment of renewable energy, especially as we think about scaling and tripling renewable energy in the country. These types of interventions are really key to helping to achieve those, especially for a country that has a huge energy access gap as Nigeria.
And finally, before we let you go, in terms of priorities for the future for RMI, would you just want to briefly share with us so we know what the expectations are, particularly for Nigeria?
So for us, really, we have tried and designed different business models for the country, and we are actually implementing a few of them. Like I mentioned, interconnected mini grids, commercial and industrial customers, renewable embedded generation, and commercial streets, and they are actually working, and we are really eager to move away from the pilot phase and to really focus around scale. And to focus on scale, what we are paying attention right now is really building up a pipeline of projects, a pipeline of bankable projects that will attract the right type of financing. This would help to, contribute to the country's net zero targets by 2060, and also help to, improve the reliability, increase energy access. We're really also focusing on getting a holistic plan for the country in terms of like how our utilities looking at planning, injecting renewables into their areas. We are currently developing a roadmap for utilities to advance renewables in their areas, and also developing a set of toolkits around financial model, around contracting, around procurement that will help utilities to advance these in a sustainable way. Capacity building is also a very, very important piece of work that we're focusing on. We have last year been able to train about 25 DISCO staff on renewable energy or preparing renewable energy project within their areas, and we're looking to advance that. And so really the focus is on scaling up these projects and working with different partners to ensure that we're working together to expand on these projects.
Oh, excellent. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much.
Suleiman Babamanu, who is the Nigerian Program Director at Rocky Mountain Institute. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.